Hey there, and welcome to Approved AF, the licensing podcast. Stories and strategies from brokers who got licensed and leveled up. I'm Catalina Stepanoff, and I work behind the scenes here at licensingstore.com, where we help mortgage companies get licensed, stay compliant, and scale without the chaos. So, if you're thinking about launching your own shop, leveling up your business, or want to just learn from people who've already walked the walk, then I'm glad you're here, and let's get into it. Hi, and welcome back to Approved AF, the licensing podcast. I'm joined here by my co-host, Ryan Goodemoot, who also works here at Licensing Store. Hi, Ryan.
Hey.
All right. So today we are going to be talking about using your licensing as a weapon and how to use your licensing strategically to grow your business. Ryan has been in the business for just a couple of years. What is it?
25, almost 26. Kind of scary.
So he has been able to see a lot of companies grow and manage themselves successfully, as well as some that have mismanaged their opportunities and gone to the wayside. So he's able to speak to us a little bit more on that. We are just going to kind of ask Ryan here about some of his insights in what he has seen brokers do that has made them be successful.
Indeed. It's first and foremost, when it comes to the licensing, strongly recommend if you are a potential or if you're already a kinetic owner of a mortgage company to offload your licensing. And that's not because we are licensingstore.com. That is because if you want to have ultimate success, you want to be focused on origination and origination strategy as opposed to mano y mano or mano versus many mano wrestling with the NMLS and with the different state regulators you will encounter during the process.
So leverage your time.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
On how you can get more loans. How can you increase revenue? How can you increase time on the sales floor rather than time in the administrative floor? And, the math is traditionally, and we'll get more into it, gosh, for the cost of probably, with the average loan amount where it is now, for the cost of less than one loan, you'll get into another state.
Yeah, absolutely. So for most brokers, the hesitation to get into adding new licenses, the challenge the NMLS possesses over them is kind of daunting. Why do you think that is, and how should brokers go into a mindset shift?
Well, simply put, the NMLS, you and I know it better than people that may have not encountered it, is pretty antiquated. It's a labyrinth at best to follow and to be able to execute on. And if you're not in it every single day, you won't know it. And that's why you hire services out to not deal with it. It sounds very simple and very plug licensing store. That's not the case, man. I guarantee if you log into that NMLS website and you start trying to do your licensing, you're going to want to rip your computer out of the wall and maybe find the nearest lake and deposit it in said lake. And that's not being, for effect a little bit, but it's almost that frustrating. And again, we hearken back to the fact of don't be mired in the administrative tasks, be mired in the origination and the strategy of how to grow your company. Because it's a wonderful opportunity, even in the toughest of markets, to have a mortgage company to be able to afford residential loans and get more residential loans, because you'll make more income. And if you have a great plan, or even if you have a good plan, it'll happen pretty quickly.
So what do you think is one move that you've seen unlock serious growth for clients?
Expanding geographic. You have your home state, your home state well. But you want to go into it with a strategy. Find states maybe close to you or ones that you maybe know family, or ones that you know are great markets. There are a few that come to mind. Find markets with a higher average loan amount. The bigger the loan amount, the bigger the revenue for you.
So licensing lets you expand your market, your referral potential, and your network potential.
That's correct. The more
Excellent.
population you have the potential to touch formally when you are licensed, the more opportunity you have. It's like putting more, in a weird way, but much better odds of putting more tickets into a lottery.
So I'm a new brokerage. I'm just starting up. I'm ready to expand from just my home state into another state or two. Do you often suggest that somebody that is maybe just a one-person shop take on a multi-state challenge, or would you suggest that they take it bite by bite, state by state?
I don't think there's a wrong answer there. It depends on their own bandwidth, and that proprietor of that organization needs to come to that conclusion themselves. And that's kind of what I coach them on, is to think about what they can handle and be real with themselves and be honest with themselves. Can they handle this? Can they take on more states? Is their mind aglow, so to speak, where they can take a big workload? But the workload will not be, if, let's say, they use licensing store, their workload will not be of working on licensing. It will be, how do I get loans in that state? Because it's coming.
So their opportunity for growth is more directed at lead acquisition rather than the licensing challenge. Would you say that like you were saying, go geographically by the state that is closest to you, or maybe ones that you already have connections in? Is it advantageous to also be thinking about the bandwidth, not only for yourself in the licensing aspect, but also the bandwidth of a bank account?
That's key. Where does your capital sit? Because every state's different. If you're trying to get into states, that's another part of the math problem. And a great question, Catalina, because each state has a different net worth requirement that you must. Some states don't have net worth requirements. So, that's part of the measurement. So we've talked about a few things to get to where we're at so far. Population in the state, familiarity with the state, population in the state, average loan amount in the state. Then you have to think about the requirements of the state. Some states actually, even at a broker level, have CPA audited financial requirements, and some states have pretty high surety bond amounts, for an annual policy, which is pretty affordable all in all. But you have to look at your own books, and it's always business, never personal when it comes to net worth.
You say a minimum net worth, just for people that are venturing into new states. That net worth, let me remind you, starts from the day you apply and is forever ongoing.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Net worth. We have definitely seen some clients or people that have come to us with other states that they have missed that memo of it being ongoing, and they put their license in jeopardy and have to scramble to get the capital back together so that the state doesn't revoke their license. It's a very minor but major detail.
And that's a great point. And to reiterate, always maintain that net worth. It's not like you just have to have it for one time or one time a year. It has to be there. If you think they won't figure it out, they'll figure it out. And then you'll be in a bit of a pickle.
Okay, so again, pretending that I'm a new broker in the market, I'm starting to expand. What if I'm not comfortable necessarily growing into new states at this point, but I'm ready to build up my internal team, adding in loan officers and members to my team? What do you think is an attractive vantage point to growing out your team in that sense?
In terms of employees, I think, especially if you're in the broker or the non-delegated correspondent space, build your sales force first, but build it the way you approach. Look for LOs that are trainable and have the fire. You'll know if someone has the fire. When you don't have to ask someone to do something and they figure it out before you tell them, that's a great associate to hire. And then when it comes to managing that, because that's a whole different multifaceted labyrinth for me to make up a saying, I guess, or something, but I would recommend that you have someone manage that for you as well. That's weird. Isn't that weird? Oh, yeah. We do have a thing called MLMP, which is Monthly License Management Plan. Pretty basic acronym. People may have made fun of it within our ranks, but what it does is kind of puts your company on autopilot. And it's all based upon, it's extremely affordable. I'll give you an example. To hire a chief compliance officer, a licensing manager for your company, I don't care if you have 5 employees or 500, the starting rate's $80,000 total compensation package if you're lucky. That's if you're lucky, and it's usually about $1.25. When I say $1.25, I don't mean $1.25. I mean $125,000 a year when you consider health benefits. They're going to be an FTE, a full-time employee. So, whereas MLMP, let's say you have 3 company licenses and 15 total loan officer licenses. We will manage all reports, all renewals, all company or all NMLS notifications that come by. So you don't have to be, oh my God, I have a deadline for the reports. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh, we got you. And that would be at a cost of like $385 a month. So for less than $4,800 a year, actually $4,620 if you want to break it right down to granular terms at $385 a month for 12 months. We do everything for you. So we're essentially an employee of the company. And you don't have to worry about that. Again, you are focused on sales origination. How do I grow my business? All you have to worry about.
So for the statement, more states equal more headache, what do you feel is truth in that statement? And what do you feel is just a myth?
I mean, we could wax utopian or like we're in the Garden of Eden, but if you are, whether you're using a licensing firm or a compliance firm or not, you're still going to have some headaches, but the loosely calculated loss of headache is probably 95 to 98% if you get a quality firm to represent you for all things being licensing. I don't care how many states. You're going to still have to do things. You're going to have to do continuing education, stuff like that. But the amount of headache is substantially less.
So if I'm just a regular loan officer who's had a dream of being my own shop owner, I don't necessarily have a substantial amount of capital to be expanding and utilizing to leverage a licensing team. At this moment in time, I'm just looking at getting one state. Okay. What are the things that I would be anticipating to be my headaches?
Mortgage call reports. The reporting piece seems to be a point of friction or point of pain for the clients that I talk to every day. And if, gosh, what have we done? And today's our 4th birthday, but I think we've done 2,000 company licenses or somewhere plus or minus 100 of that. So we know our companies well. As you frequently, most of you scratch your head, I know our people pretty well, right? Our clientele, because I care. We all care, but I just want to know my customer, and reporting is the biggest pain point by far. And it's not only a pain point, but it's a pain in the posterior, to be PC on our podcast. They're kind of convoluted, just like the NMLS in general is, but we have a team that will do reporting a la carte if you can't do, if you can't find, you can't put it into your company budget, because you do want to manage your capital appropriately. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you want to roll your sleeves up, but you get in a pickle and you need a report completed, we're there for you.
Yeah, I always say like we don't necessarily do rocket science here. Somebody can roll their sleeves up and get themselves inundated with the licensing process. It,
Sure.
but like you were mentioning, it just allows you to free up time so that you can focus on other aspects of starting and growing a business that, you know, you're not necessarily anticipating marketing and network connections to take as much time as they do, onboarding MLOs to
Mhm.
take as much time as they do.
You got it.
Yeah,
Those are all
talking
bandwidth gobblers, right? They did chew up
exactly.
bandwidth.
And you only have so many hours in the day, especially as a business owner, especially if you're trying to juggle friendships and family outside of those business hours. You
Right.
know, those first few years are really tough.
Yeah, they are.
Um, just in the sense of your time.
And
But
that's with that being said, Kelly, pardon the interruption, but
yeah,
you know, that's where you want to find the capital to have someone help you, because that bandwidth will be unnecessary, non-value added bandwidth that won't allow you to make more money
mm-hmm.
and to be more successful, because you're dealing with administrative tasks that you don't know much about. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, question for you. If a
Yes.
broker has one license and then they're doing okay, right? How
Yeah.
do you convince them that it's worth going after 3 or 4 more states?
We mentioned it earlier in the call. One loan in each of those states, or how about 4 loans in the one state, will more than cover the fees for all 3 or 4 states. One loan, one state, actually, if you really do the math and where the average loan amount is right now, depending on your compensation tier, one loan in one state will probably more than cover the cost of probably 2 of the states with what you bring in on that one loan. And then if you do a great job, boy, as we know, in this current day and age, word of mouth spreads like wildfire, doesn't it?
Sure does.
When you do a great job for somebody, they're going to let everybody know, oh, go see John Smith at ABC Funding. He did a phenomenal job. But at the same time, if you don't do a good job, that guy, John Smith from ABC Funding, I don't like it very much. And he took forever on my loan. He was not responsive, so it's all about,
The service you
even
provide,
though it's a
absolutely.
digital age, you matter as an originator.
That
So,
actually takes me to my next point of licensing and lead generation. And kind of let's talk a little bit about, unlocking your target market.
mhm.
So in your expertise of years in the industry, what have you seen brokers do to target their specific market and not get too broad, trying to be everything for everybody?
Traditionally target the what's known, do some research. That's the glory of having a good multitude of search engines on the computer. Figure out what the hottest metropolitan area is in that potential, or if you are in that new jurisdiction. Jurisdiction, for those scoring at home, means state. We have certain words that they say differently in the NMLS and in the licensing world. And anytime you hear the word jurisdiction, folks, it means state. For our instances, jurisdiction obviously has many meanings. I digress. But find which metropolitan statistical area in that state has the most population. Kind of goes back to that math, the population, the average loan amount. And then maybe if you have the courage, which you probably should have if you're going to expand states, do a Google search at who the biggest realtors are in that city. And then if you figure that out, find a way to penetrate the fortress that is that realtor shop to say, look, I'm here to help you. Am I new? Am I local? No, but I dare you to take the Pepsi challenge, not to take you all back to 1981, but take the Pepsi challenge.
So like you were mentioning that for licensing and getting a target market kind of finding and doing your own market research, finding that metropolitan area, finding those top producing realtors and making personalized connections with each of them. Because I think the other part to that, focusing on your target market and having the realtors, also know what your market is getting the referral. And like you were saying earlier, doing a great job will spread like wildfire, vice versa. Not following through with what you say you're going to do will come back and be your legacy.
Yep. And, the reason why I mentioned that too is a couple things. Purchase markets are a little less pain. There isn't as much of a ebb and flow as there are in a refinance market. If you have the capital, you do a combo platter, you start approaching, I would go after the top 20 if you can find the data, which you probably can pretty simply. But go after the top 20 realtors in that market, the agents. And the other half of it is find a good play when it comes to lead generation. Lead generation can get very expensive very quickly. So you have to be smart with your capital and dip a toe in. Maybe, talk to a couple of different companies and dip a toe in. Then if it seems to work well, maybe put a couple more toes in, then maybe put your whole foot in. Then next thing you know, you're neck deep, and yet you're neck deep in capital, most likely because you're getting loans. And that's based upon the training, not of, well, it's a big role in it, but your origination staff.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's just you, like, do you know how to handle the sit, as in talking to a customer? And that's the key. How do you pivot off of it? How do you, close the loan?
Yeah, and sitting with a growing company.
Right, and more importantly, trust is earned when they know they can trust you.
Actually, I was just listening to somebody saying that right now, in this market, we are seeing a lot of customer trust recession that's been happening because people are feeling like the marketing is overstating what is actually being the follow through for. So I think you make a very good point that building up the trust.
And that goes right to under promise, over deliver, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Many people do the opposite, and then again, it seems like the theme of the day, you're in a pickle, Dick. That was a shameless movie quote for those scoring at home from Dick. There's the movie with Jim Carrey with like Times of Dick and Jane or something like that. So
using, like, switching gears now, using your time and your capital and partnering with loan processors and coaching and marketing, where do you see the biggest bang for the buck when a broker is starting out for them to partner with people in the industry so that their clients have the best possible experience?
If it's talking about within their own fulfillment of their loan, I would say, you kind of pointed it out indirectly, but I'll directly point it out, is to get a quality third-party processor and third-party processing company. Unless you have your own, that's fine too. Quality processor makes or breaks a day. Do they have the courage to face the customer? If they don't, they're not a fit, because a home transaction's the most emotional transaction that there is in a person's life. Emotions run high. They need that water, not the soda, to quote Bruce Lee. They need someone that's calm, not someone that you shake them up a bit and try to open the can and it sprays all over. We don't want that.
Solutions oriented.
That's right. And listen, use these. I'm not crazy. Use these things right here.
He's pointing to his ears.
Right. Listen, use your ears. And you know what? When I was younger, and I'm still not perfect, none of us are. I think in this day and age, listening is a art all in itself, isn't it?
It's a learned skill. It's a practice skill.
Yeah, that's the key. as I've grown older, or how about as I've grown more mature, my ears work a lot better and I listen, I pick up things and I remember things just by maybe shutting my pie hole and using my ears.
Yeah. How do you encourage, again, you've been in the industry and you've seen a lot of people grow rapidly and spark really hot, but also on the opposite end of that burnout. How do you avoid and encourage other brokers to avoid burnout?
Walk away from the desk once in a while. Again, under promise, over deliver. Set expectations. But you have to take you time, and especially family time, because that's what matters most. Take it from a guy that's only taken 3 vacation days formally, like disconnected since 2007. Don't be me. Take time to be with your family and to do things and to experience life, because it matters a lot. And it will recharge you. The 3 days that I did take off that you finally convinced me to take off, those helped a ton.
Absolutely. Again, like you said, it's the relationships that we value the most.
Your family, your friends. Not everything in life, much contrary to popular demand, is work. You need to take time for yourself.
But it's about communication. It's about making sure that you're communicating with your clients, you're communicating within your team, and you're communicating within your family when you're outside of that. And there, sometimes that in and of itself is exhausting because you feel like you're talking all the time. But
sure.
I think, like that helps manage the expectations. What would you say is important for brokers to remember as they're setting up their internal systems and trying to look at avoiding the operational chaos of building a business, as well as maybe they've started it, they're a year or two under their belt, but now they're ready to kind of start scaling?
You better make sure you, first and foremost in this space, is you better make sure you have the LOS that fits you. And if you're just starting off, you better ride a few bikes. You better watch a couple of, if you know if you've been originating for a while, let's say for a company, you know what you like in a loan origination system and what you don't. That's the basis when it comes to systems. And then if you're using a CRM, you better ride a few bikes there too and make sure you got one that you like, because that's kind of your hub for everything. So
not only getting one that you like, but then actually using it, because we've seen a lot of people get an LOS, they come to us, they start getting their reports done, but they've got dirty data and they've never cleaned it up. And then that comes back to be a time-consuming effort. Whereas if they had just taken the couple of extra minutes up front to set their system up successfully, it will just reward them with dividends.
Judging by your tenor, it sounds like maybe you've experienced that once or twice.
I just know what I see.
Just reporting what I see here in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're absolutely correct. Like, that was, one of the first things when I was in sales some 30 some years ago, before even the mortgage business, was like, don't be like, it was ingrained into me. Don't be like the rest of the salespeople and do your paperwork right.
Yes.
If there's a blank there. There's a reason why there's a blank there. Mm-hmm. Fill in the blank. Okay. Moving forward.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and talking with me on this topic today.
Thank you, Catalina, for you taking the time. And your opinions are valued, and you know what you're talking about. And it's always fun to talk to someone that's has business acumen at a high level. So thank you.
Make sure I tell my kids that too.
Right. And that's the hardest part, right?
Your mom knows what she's talking about.
Well, yes, she does. Yes, she does.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. That's a wrap for this episode of Approved AF, the licensing podcast. Remember, licensing is not overhead. It's an opportunity. What's one state you've been thinking about getting licensed in, and what would that unlock for you? So, wondering what to do next? Hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. Head on over to licensingstore.com if you want help with getting licensed, staying compliant, or growing without the chaos. Share this with a friend who's ready to level up, and follow along because every episode will get you one step closer to being approved AF. Thanks.